previously with the Quellists.
And go ahead and open the window.
May I come in?
Oh, no.
No.
That seems fair. How are you?
Well, and you?
Tired. I've had a long journey, but I come bearing a gift. And as he speaks, Smokey, you see two pointed fang-like teeth. You can call me Desark.
At that, Mira's eyes just kind of go wide and she takes a step back. We were visited by Desark. If you know the name.
Boy, that name echoes in Tyrek's memory. Tyrek, you have heard all kinds of stories about Desark. He's tied very deeply with the shadow, the plane of shadow. His name is attached to some really nefarious deeds during the Dhampir purge. Some of it seemed sloppy. All of them were war crimes. And you never got the impression that it was anything organized. It seemed like a fit of passion. Okay.
Did we cause another explosive crater on the map? Did we damage the Earth again?
Oh, I mean, there was definitely like a sinkhole of sorts that formed as the forge filled with seawater.
Okay, but nothing nearby Chicken Town's level.
No,
Okay.
nothing like that. It was big. It's like I like to. I was thinking about how, because I thought should they have blown up the whole forge? I think what they did was the equivalent of like shoving explosives down the barrel of anti-aircraft artillery, and just bending the barrel. It makes it effectively useless, without doing like absolute tons of damage.
Oh, so it was like an EMP kind of thing?
Oh, like an EMP, you mean?
Energy or something?
It sounds like you're talking about an imp. Yeah, I mean, EMP may not be the best analog to it, but yeah, it filling the forge with water and smothering those fires. Think about like if you have something that runs that hot all the time, it's got some liquid, moving parts, and cooling them down very quickly will not be good for it at all. All right, so you guys head on back into town to Ilfstrad. That fifth presence that you're feeling, it kind of follows you the whole way. Now, once you make it into town and kind of, Chris Thompson, you're going to laugh at this because of what I've been reading lately. There's like a threshold in the town that sort of, as you cross it, that fifth presence sort of disappears.
Interesting.
Into the safety of this town where people have made their home, kind of in this inhospitable place. So, once that happens, Tyrek, I think you're pretty well able to deduce that the presence you were feeling was like the direct eye of Nalash was on you, like watching you very, very closely, closer than he has been in a long time.
Okay.
Because you're very used to that magic. You felt it before. Just it's been a while, but Tyrek's memory is nigh perfect. So imperfect. So, you would immediately recognize that sensation once it was gone.
As soon as it's gone, that's what that was.
I see now.
Yeah.
Eric will remember this.
Okay. So tell me, are you reconsidering your unwillingness to bargain?
There's no response, but that feeling of it's not quite what you were feeling before out there as that fifth presence with you, but there's definitely it feels as though someone was making eye contact with you from like a distance and then just kind of looked away. Almost I won't say embarrassed. I don't think embarrassed is the right word, but definitely abashed might be a better description of the feeling that passes through whatever that connection is. So you guys make it back to town. Everything's fine. You get back to that house with Boot was his name, the head of Boot, sitting still on the windowsill, I believe, where Disark left it. Luke has been, I don't know, Luke, what have you been doing so far in the town while everyone was away? Because it's been a couple hours, I would say.
Well, I would have probably just been, since we were kind of worried that everybody worried for people's protection, I probably would have, just setting up like a blade barrier and just trying to protect everybody in general around town, and just prepping healing potions and everything else. So probably just, not sitting on my hands, just trying to be prepared, be the Boy Scout here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, once everyone shows back up, you are relieved to see everyone's fine, maybe a little bit scratched up or whatever. Everyone's still kind of soggy. They let you know what happened. They show you the brain crystals and that 2 more War Masters are down. So as of right now, the remaining War Masters to you are Grieve, Sabaton, and Vambrus. So yeah, you guys are all here together now, and you know that Vambrus, aka Vario, is not on this continent anymore. I believe that was, if I didn't make that explicit on the last session, then I will change that in post. But yeah, I want to say that was pretty clear, I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Through the remains of the past Warforged, is there a way we can almost like scry or find out on their whereabouts?
Ooh, you know what? That's a really good question. I think the person you would need to talk to about that is someone who has a rather interesting connection with them. And that could be someone within your party here right now, potentially, but you definitely know someone who has a massive connection with them and has for a long time, and that would be Rotney Egam, who is currently residing in Cloudhenge.
Rodney's a good source of information. I can do a pretty decent job. With his help, I can probably tell you to within a few meters where they are. Probably.
Let's head over to Rodney, I guess, unless anyone needs to do any errands around here.
So, Imble.
I'm ready to go home.
Yeah.
I've had enough snow the last little while.
So, I'm certainly preparing for our trip back, but what can I do in the way of narrowing down locations while we're preparing?
Oh, man, okay, so I think one of the best ways that you could start honing in on other Warforged sort of connected through this. So you've got you have Gauntlet's brain crystal, and that's encased in, was it basalt, I think. You've got your memory runes that are traced on it. Let's see. You could start by using that, but instead of opening that connection like you had done to bring in Pauldron, if you were to touch the mind in that crystal and, man, I'm trying to think. This, you know what, this might be a little strange even for Tyrek, because I think in order to do what you want to do, you have to do something that you probably didn't think you would have to do with someone that you hated so much. And that is to touch that crystal with your mind with the intent of some kind of empathy or compassion. Because what you're trying to do is locate, and location, or locating in the way that you are in, sort of implies a level of concern, right? And I think, I think that's probably, as you're sort of looking at it, that kind of solution comes to your mind.
Sounds trying to get... a lot of it's been essentially sympathetic vibrations, but literally sympathetic vibrations. Okay, I've got at least fragments of the mind crystals from several of the other Warforged now, or the War Masters now, which I can use to help build this thing up. Okay.
You can probably grab the one off the windowsill, too.
Yeah.
Its head.
Alright, so then it's time to start reach out and find people. Okay, so I suppose I'm gonna start trying to figure out how to make that work, how to convey to bits of Gauntlet that are there that I'm not looking for a fight and that I'm looking to try to. Oh, what would this be? Alright, I know there's not much of you there. The best of times we didn't get along well. But I've seen the Warforged. I've seen the way that they continue to wander and to be lost, and to be purposeless. Tools for war with no war. You know that throwing them continually into the machine, into the grinder, wasn't the right thing. It wasn't the way to give it purpose. There's other things we can do. There's other ways we can have meaning in our lives again. And you found more.
Oh man, that concept of meaning leaves your head, or rather you think it up, right? And you send that out. And immediately, man, have you guys ever been had an octopus tentacle on your skin?
Oh, thank goodness.
That strange suction-y feeling.
Not that kind of girl, Asa.
Oh god! Oh no!
Oh.
Well, you can imagine what that would feel like, right?
Sure.
It's that, but with your thoughts. Something immediately. I say tentacle. That makes it sound sinister. That's not how I mean this. But it's as though thousands of tiny little suction cups have reached out and tried to grab onto that word, meaning that concept. And sorry, not to step on your toes. This is amazing. I'm enjoying listening to this a lot. So you can continue, but that's if you need a hint of what path to continue on.
If at any point Tyrek looks uncomfortable, if he's willing, I'm gonna just reach out my hand and cast a spell on him. If he trusts me enough to do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Are you wincing or anything that would kind of alarm Gorguts?
Probably.
I'm just gonna cast this just to be safe.
I like that. Man, okay.
I know we could. The old soldiers in us. We could bend ourselves in fighting and die in a ditch, forgotten and meaningless, serving pointless feuds. We could decide as some have to choose the battles that we fight and to die, again, ultimately meaningless on a field still, but for our own fight, for the sake of fighting and conquest. But we don't have to.
There's
No.
an immediate feeling of the collective breath, not that Warforged need to breathe, but as though they're going and kind of that's caused a reaction as well.
I know that some of you will dismiss what I'm saying, reject me because I'm not of the Forge. And that's true. But like you, I am a child of the battlefield. That's where I was born, and that's where I was shaped. That's where I became who I am, and really is where you became who you are. You probably know by now, my name is Tyrek Skybreaker. I'm a veteran of the Koranianid War, like you. I'm commander of the Iron Vigil, one of those called the Quellists. And like you, my life was bound to and defined by the fields of war. I was captured and tortured. I don't know for how long. I was beaten and broken until my mind failed, and I lost myself. And then I lost myself. And I was seduced into a pact with one of Quark's lapdogs, convinced and fed into the machine of violence for the sake of violence. And I became like an animal. I swore oaths of vengeance that I would seek their undoing no matter the cost, and I'd wage war against the very god of war. For years this was lofty ideals, but little more, for Blade can seldom bite the hand that wields it. It's futile. The death of Gauntlet is just Felvin, who's here with us still some, but his death and the discovery of all of you who were hidden away in Havard Cross, it brought me, I thought, the means to challenge the gods in truth, not merely fanciful words. I thought that I had found my way to bring my war on my terms. And so I plotted and hid and put on a face of compassion and mercy, all while planning ways to turn you into, yet again, into cooler machines than you've ever been used as, and to use you for my purpose, to crush and to destroy and to tear down anything in my path, anything in my way, regardless of who it hurt or what costs it came at. See the world burn to get my vengeance, to get my peace. But I'm sick of it. It's pointless, and what's the reason? What value is there in a triumph on the field if there's nothing left afterwards? Violence for violence never has a reward. It never solves anything. It never brings, it never satiates. It never brings purpose. You become empty, serving only nothing. This connection that I've made here, I didn't realize there was a connection to anyone at first. I thought it was just a space that I could hide to make my work and to plan and sketch things out. Something changed. I don't know when. I'm certainly not sure how. I don't know if it was through pretending to be a good man, putting on a face that the people around me could see, that the other Quellists and the townspeople in Cloudhenge and other places we went, or possible that just as I could touch your minds, that all of you touched and influenced mine, but I started to become the man that I was pretending to be. I started to become a man who desires peace and to bring an end to conflict, to bring an end to war for war's sake, and to bring a time of growth and peace and new life where no one's bound by their past, where who you were doesn't matter, it's who you are and who you are going to be. And I know that the Warforged, you were made on the machines and forged on the fields of battle, but you're more than those machines. You are your own, and you are unique, each of you, and you have an unrelenting drive, and turning that to something creative and something of your own desire and your own expression. I think that would be worth any cost. So, I don't know. I've probably ruined most things now, but I'm done hiding in the shadows. If anybody else is willing to talk with me more, you'll always know where to find me.
There is a flood. Wow. First of all, chills. Second of all, tears. Third of all, wow. There is a flood of sensation that comes back at you. Think of it as like, as you were sending this out, you felt as though you were, how do I describe this? You felt as though you were a drop of oil in soapy water, where the soap is repelled, or not repelled, but it keeps its distance from you. And you could feel just beyond this like awareness that you had sending these thoughts out. You could feel that shoal of attention just beyond there, moving and shifting and drawing in, a collective breath and reaching out and grabbing for like strands of thought and concept that you've been sending out. And when you finish the thought, it all comes crashing back into you. And there's a few distinct things that happen. The first off is that just know that Grieve and Sabaton are dead, and that it's just happened, or recently. Secondly, there's a shock that has gone through this entire community of awareness, and units that at one point you recognize, like, the consciousness of certain units that you had come across in Havard Cross, and it's no longer just a template or like a pre-programmed thing anymore. There is seeds of awareness in everything, and like I said, the one that gives you that impression is because you recognize this one. It's as though you're standing at the center of a giant spider web, and you are holding like thousands of little threads, and if you were to tug on any one of them, it would take you to this, whatever consciousness that this one belongs to, and that's the way that you can find the Warforged. I don't know what to call that. I don't know how to put that in your character sheet, but that's where Tyrek is right now, and this particular state of mind that you have to be in, that's not going to be hard to attain, just with Tyrek's constant practice at meditating and things like that. Since he doesn't sleep, it's something that you're not a stranger to. So getting back to this isn't going to be difficult for you. So you have just very, very swiftly developed a brand new tool for yourself to do this thing.
Tyrek is the one.
He's not the zero anymore. He's the one. And I want to touch on something real quick, where you said, I've been trying to reach out and touch all of your minds, and maybe it's just that you guys have all reached out and touched mine back. And it's very much exactly like that, where they are sharing this with you, and therefore you are sharing yourself with them. And there's a level of trust there that I think, I don't want to speak for Tyrek, but there's a level of trust in there that is unparalleled in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, that was amazing. Tyrek, your message box has a new message in it.
Oh yeah, message box.
You got mail.
Dial up.
The message is from, was it Ezra Raker? No. Yes. Yes? Shit.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it had to be Ezra Raker. Or it wasn't Ketch, it was Raker. Okay. The message is from Ezra, where he basically, it's a really short message. It looks as though it was written in haste. There's some smudging on the message that looks like maybe it was blood. There's definitely some ash. And the whole thing, like, you pull it out of the box, and I think everybody who is sensitive to the arcane immediately, I don't want to equate it to a bad stench, but like it fills the room with this like energy, that I don't really know if you guys have words to describe how it feels, but it's though something, it's almost like sunlight, right? You pull it out, and like this, it's like being hit by sunlight. It lights up the whole room, and the note just says, Jackal is dead. And right below that says Grant, and then there's a line as though he got interrupted and shoved the note in the box.
What?
Make some kind of ingredient thing, but now I'm sad.
Ooh.
And amidst all the other sensations that you've been feeling in this moment, that's the other one that hits you. The moment that you read Jackal is dead, immediately you are aware of the absence of your friend's presence in the world. And I don't even mean that on like a psychic level, but
yeah.
this presence that Jackal has had, just a constant baseline in all of your lives. And I don't know, obviously, if Tyrek decides to share that information, the moment that anyone else reads that, the same will be true for them. it's just not. It's not there anymore.
Oh, dead. Soren's dead.
What? No,
How?
I don't know. That's all it says.
it's wrong.
You can feel it, can't you?
No, it's wrong. At that point, Mira's gonna just fall to her knees on the spot and just look directly down at the ground. And, no!
Hell, so that we can reach back home. Are you sure?
This is from Ezra, from one of my old squad mates, one of the members of the Vigil. The other box from this Jackal had the other box.
We need to go back.
I'll send just this single word message back through the box. How? No punctuation or anything, just how.
Is absolutely lighting his pipe and turning away from the group.
Okay, so you send that little slip of paper back through. It's a little while before anything comes back, and basically it's almost the same word as before. It says Grant, and then an arrow, and then the word Cloudhenge, and it looks like it was written very, very hastily, but nothing definitive.
Whatever's happened, Ezra's not really where he can give us an answer right now. And perhaps going back to Cloudhenge, or is in Cloudhenge, get more information there. Perhaps his body's still around. Maybe we can bring him back.
We need to go. We need to go now. Luke, can you take us back?
Absolutely.
Been way too long.
Luke, you crouch down and put your hand on Mira's shoulder.
I would have already been doing that. I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh yeah, no, that's
I was gonna
that's totally fine.
kneel down and start praying.
So from your position next to Mira, you begin this prayer. Everyone kind of circles around. There's a few people who have like some of the commotion. You know, like I'm trying to remember all who you were with in this building. But anyway, these people who you were with, they are kind of like, they very clearly pick up that something very personal has happened, and they're kind of staying away. Luke begins his prayer. Smokey, you feel a hand touch your back, and I assume it's someone from the group, whether it's Gorguts or Tyrek or even Luke from where he's standing. I don't know if he can reach you, but everyone is kind of connected in this moment. And you, Luke, you hit that last word in your prayer, and immediately the air around you warms a little. Certainly not as chilly as you are now aware of. It's almost like you're outside, because you are now in the Grove of Pleth in Cloudhenge. Welcome home. Which, funny enough, are actually the first words that you hear that aren't from Luke's mouth, as another temple priest walks around to see the summoning circle, and sees you all crouched there.
Thank you.
I don't know that we were expecting you back so soon. What's the occasion?
Sort of double occasion. We unexpectedly concluded the business we needed to up north far quicker than we expected, and received sort of an urgent call to return.
Without waiting around for this conversation to transpire, Mira's going to actually break into a run and head for the Mantle Guild Hall.
All right. So the priest, obviously, like, nobody's stopping her. The priest watches as she goes, turns back to Tyrek. He asks that question, says that weren't expecting you back so soon. And says, well, I think Crow's in charge right now of the mantle. I know Gregory Ketch had come by to let me know that you had been out of town. It's been a couple weeks, I think. Anyway, Jackal is overseas right now with Ezra Raker. Something came down the vine. He mentioned that he needed to be over there in Hyoron. We haven't had word from them in a while.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. If there's anything else you need, just let us know. Good to see you, Father Lunker.
Too.
Are you all following Mira, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Okay, so here's where things are going to change up a little bit. You guys follow Mira to the guild hall. Crow is there. He informs you of some of the events that have transpired recently. That Jackal had received word from a source. Crow wasn't sure who, and knew that he needed to go very quickly overseas. So he recruited Ezra Raker, as I believe Tyrek very likely kind of left that as like the new open or working relationship there. If you need anything, let Ezra know. So Ezra went with Jackal. They used some sort of a teleporting spell and went over to Hyaoron to take care of some business. And the only other information that Crow knew is that somehow it involved the group calling themselves the Liberators. The Jinn Liberators. Do you tell Crow pretty quickly what's happened? Or rather, the news that you have?
Assuming Mira's the first one through the door, which, I mean, if anyone else ran, they'd run faster than... Yeah, she basically just burst in the door and into the guildmaster's office, and seeing that Crow is there, not Jackal, just all but shout at him, "Where is he?"
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Let's play that out, actually. I like that. So you come bursting in and scream, "Where is he?" And Crow, like, he looks up, he's writing something down with a big old fancy crow feather quill, because why not? And he looks up and he looks shocked, and just based on the look on Mira's face, the color drains out of his own, and he just kind of launches into this. It was just yesterday, two days ago. I'm losing track of time. He was contacted by someone, some informant or asset or something. I don't know. He doesn't tell me everything. He said he had to go. He went to Hyaoron, and he's like, he's tapping his chin. He's like, he had something to do with those liberators people. We've been keeping tabs on them. We tried to get in contact with them not that long ago. God, who was it? It was one of the Vigil was out there with them.
You don't know. You don't know where he is.
I don't know exactly. No. The words Shrike Temple came up. I don't know if that's where he is or
Grant. They mentioned Grant. Where's Grant?
If there's, I mean, he's the main informant over on that continent. So if there's anything important that needs to be brought back, I assume he's on a ship on his way here or at port over there still. I don't know. And immediately starts. He bends down and starts writing a note. And summons up a like a familiar, and it's of course it's a crow. And he attaches this message to the crow and sends it out. He's like, we're gonna find out right now where Grant is. And by the time, I think, unless there's anything else that Mira wants to do, I don't want to cut this short.
I think that's long enough for people to catch up.
Yeah. By the time that anything else happens, everyone else will be in this room.
Mm-hmm.
Whereupon Crow will relate exactly everything he's told to Mira. Who was it that was with the Liberators on the ship?
That was Rexus.
Rexus
Core.
That's right. Okay.
You guys are making my insides hurt, by the way. Like, my heart really feels freaking heavy right now.
Pushes himself in the door, just panting. Should have cast in haste. Why is she so fast?
Probably because she cast haste.
We've been caught up with what she was informed. Mira was told.
Yes.
You were on.
Business of the Liberators. We don't have any details of this business.
I think it doesn't take long for word to spread that the Quellists are back in Cloudhenge. And I would say probably 30 minutes to an hour after you are all into the Mantle Guildmaster's office, Hetmastine walks in, and sees the look on everyone's faces and the general like posture and air in the room, and it's almost as though he stops right in the doorway, like he doesn't want to let himself come in and intrude on this, but at the same time he is very clearly happy to see you all, and wants to make his support known. And so he kind of he stops at like this, in this like this halfway point, this transition point between rooms. I think Smokey, he probably catches your eye first.
I'll try to, I guess, probably well practiced at having to deal with bad news mixed with a reunion. Try to kind of straighten myself up a little bit. But I think I would still stay on topic and ask Hit if he knows any business regarding Jackal heading out, business relating to the Liberators. And there'd be maybe a little tone of kind of not so much urgency, but hurt behind the question.
Yeah.
If it's something that was tied to the city or tied to the mantle or anything like that.
Yeah. He you actually notice now at this point that he's holding kind of a large, or like not large, but like a long semi-wide package of a kind. It's like wrapped in this brown paper, and he's not really holding it behind his back, but it's like, it looked like maybe he came up to give it to someone, and then once he sensed the air in the room, kind of put it behind him to not like make it the forefront of what's happening. And so you ask him about that. You say, what news do you have of Jackal? And immediately, I think just the way that question is phrased, and seeing the demeanor in the room, it just, he puts all the pieces together, and he's just like, well, the last I saw him was maybe 2 or 3 days ago. I met him. He and Cook of Seasons have been spending some time together lately, and we'd been having discussions about the upcoming election, to an extent, nothing too in depth, I suppose, but just trying to make sure that the city is ready for it. So yes, it was 2 days ago when, and he hands you the package that he's holding. He's like, well, Cook finished this, and Jackal was going to hang on to it till he could give it to you. But then he went out of town, and I received a note from him that had said to put that into my care. So I suppose you can have this now. But I hadn't seen him since we spoke just a couple days ago. The only reason I knew that he left was because one of the stewards brought me this, as he gestures to the package.
Well, don't see any reason in delaying it. Check the contents.
Yeah. You open it up, and there is it's a very large, it's a device you've never seen before. It's a large plank of wood with a long metal tube strapped onto it. And there's some kind of a metal lever. The way that the way that this wood is carved, it's got sort of a gentle kind of sweeping curve on one end, where it looks like maybe you could rest it on your shoulder, and there's a metal lever where you could maybe grab it, and it looks as though it's got some kind of a hammer that has flint attached to it. And you remember Cook mentioning something about wanting to build some cool new weapon for you, and so you assume that that's what that is. And that's when Hetmastine just says, he said, Cook calls it a rifle.
A what?
We're introducing this.
Yeah, this was something Smokey was supposed to have gotten before you guys left for Theranos. I just royally screwed up the timing.
Well, this will make me feel better. But mostly, I guess I'd probably pick it up and try to size it up and keep repeating to myself, a rifle. and kind of holding it haphazardly, like not exactly sure what.
Just
I'm doing
totally
there.
flagging Luke in the face.
Yeah, just, I mean, I mean, obviously, we all have reference for how a rifle should be held, and this is like I'm holding it like underneath my hip, like what, kind of looking to hit. Does this come with any documentation or any? Did he tell you anything?
Yeah,
My arrows.
I mean, I've been visiting Cook often as he's been creating the prototypes for this. He's gone through quite a few. This is what I had envisioned in my head for this thing. By the way, it's the rifle from Iboshi's Irontown.
Of course.
It's got the pipe carver family crest carved both into the wooden stock and also etched into the metal on the receiver. And so I guess kind of while you guys are waiting for news, that's what Hetmastine does. He kind of just goes over what this is and shows you all how Cook says it works. That you put powder in the pan. You have to load the wadding and the bullet. I know there's another name for it. I'm just blanking on everything, but the whatever. Anyway, and then shows you how to hold it on your shoulder and just kind of goes through the motions. Hands you a big old bag of balls, musket balls, whatever, rifle balls, and some gunpowder.
Big
No,
old stack of balls.
I mean, it's one way to make me feel better is to give me a gun that can kill people, I guess.
It's
Okay, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Ooh-wee. Plus text piercing. God damn. I mean, I can't shoot 20 of these things in the air at once. But, I mean, I won't be picky. That's fair. Do we want to kill one individual or? Okay, cool. Now I really need to fix my sheet after this so I can get this on there.
Yeah. It's also got metal hooks on it for where you can attach a strap to it. And basically, I want it to be that you won't have to spend an action to unequip and equip a bow because of the way that you could just kind of throw it back over your shoulder if you needed to, and grab your bow and immediately have that ready.
Fire for good.
So yeah, if you need to like fire once and ditch it, if you don't want to spend the time to reload it,
Throw it over your shoulder like a continental soldier.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's going into the repertoire of hey, who'd we just elect? Oh, you know that guy that just like literally was gifted the world's first gun? Does this mean Cook? Cook just introduced firearms into the world?
Yeah.
Like, do you know how many deaths Cook is going to be single-handedly responsible for?
Yeah.
That's on him.
Did
Ezra's already got it.
Ezra has a
Yeah.
Pair of
So that was
pistols.
those were Smokies was the first one to be finished and be ready, and then when the runner who Cook or Jackal had sent to find Smokey before he departed for Theranos, when they failed to get there in time, Ezra was inquiring about what Cook had been doing, and Cook made him a pair of pistols, I think it was. And then kind of let it go. So the timing wise, Smokies was done first, and everything. You were supposed to have this before anyone else, but Ezra's flavor was so good I couldn't say no. So, yeah.
I'll probably fiddle and tinker with this, get used to it. I guess while we're waiting for news. Yeah, it's gonna keep my brain occupied for a little bit here.
Okay, so you guys have seen this happen. Hetmastine's been in this room kind of trying to, I won't say lighten the mood, but trying to keep you all distracted in some form, like, and not necessarily even entertaining. He's just trying to talk to, he's old and he's been on the sea enough to know what it's like to lose people, or to be unsure of someone's fate. And so he is doing everything that he knows in his many years of life to try to bear some of that weight for you. So when he kind of wraps this up, I'd say it's been over the course of like an hour or so he's talked about this, and at this point Tyrek gets another note in his box that's from Grant. It's very immediately clear that it's Grant's handwriting, and the note basically just gives a very brief description of what he heard from Ezra, as Ezra passed on some items, as he puts it. But basically, the Ezra, Raker, and Jackal had gone to Hyaoron, very briefly met up with Grant to let them know they were in town. Something went down. Grant was on his way to the Shrike's Temple, as that's where he knew that things were heading. And by the time that he got there, the temple was collapsing. And that's when Ezra came out and met him and passed him some items, let him know what happened, and said immediately get back to Cloudhenge, and passed off the message box. Grant had some trouble getting out to port with the Shrike's Temple collapsing. Literally sent the entire city into like a riot and a panic. He was able to get to his ship on time before they shut the ports down. His whole crew was aboard. Everyone's fine. He's on his way back now, and he says with best speed he should be able to make it back in 2 days. Whereupon he will be able to go into some more detail. Now, that was pretty wordy for like the slip of paper that was not hastily written, but written down just to try to provide enough detail, right? For the next 2 days, because I don't think you all want to sit in Crow's office for this long. What do you guys expect to be doing over the next 2 days while you wait?
I think Gorguts, as much as there's like, because there's a weird kind of split in power over the Gastromancy Guild with him and Cook. I think he would try to see a way of, because I think Jackal was one of the few who would really visit Cook when he just kind of shut everyone out, and seeing the danger on Cook possibly overreacting over that detail, he's probably trying to rack his brain to either not find about Jackal's fate or somehow let him know, but gently. Okay. Otherwise it could be kind of bad. But he's used to cooking. He's not a people person.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
man, so here's. I'm going to describe something for you, and you let me know if you like the idea or not. Maybe considering that Cook is part of the Gastromancy Guild, and he's basically an engineer, right? Like that's what he does. He tinkers with things and creates things. So what if over the next 2 days, Gorguts got Cook to agree to help prepare like a really big citywide banquet, like a big like let's feed the whole city, right? And puts Cook on some difficult tasks, like, hey, I have this new recipe I learned in this city called God, I don't even remember the name of my own towns anymore. Ilfstrad, it was this kind of cold place, and they had this weird chowder thing. I thought it would be cool if you could add some sort of a magical touch into it. And basically just giving him some like complicated tasks, something that's going to put his brain to work, and as they're working on it together, he could break the news that way. That way, not only is Cook's mind occupied, but he's also like in the middle of doing something that means a lot to him. And so potentially, in at least the way that I'm envisioning this, potentially that could help soften that blow, and let him absorb that information differently as they sort of prepare this feast. What do you think?
That's good. So I know before, after, the whole false Hydra, before he was kind of like locked up in his forge, because he, like, you guys brought him back, but
He's always looking over his shoulder. He's always jumpy, expecting it to return
Right.
and to finish him off. So
Yeah.
um,
So it doesn't even have to include if Cook wasn't willing to leave. Maybe Gorguts could be bringing things to the building, to the room where Cook is staying, and like spending time with him and preparing dishes that way.
mhm.
And then Gorguts just takes them back with him to wherever they're setting up this banquet at. Potentially that could be how he's spending some time with them and trying to be sensitive of what Cook's got going on, but also trying to, like you said, break it to him gently.
And Cook has, before it was more for profit, but he started getting into the business of trying to protect others by making weapons of war, which you guys just saw some examples of that. So if there was a way, if Gorguts could try to remove easy access from Cook getting a hold of them during that time, just because of he's not in the right state of mind nowadays.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely possible. Gorguts, I know you said he's not a people person, but I think just with the amount of adventuring he's done with the Quellists at this point, and like learning that dynamic and seeing how Cook very probably got along with these people, I don't think it would be a stretch to say that he could very easily kind of walk in and talk his way through while Cook's distracted, start hiding some things. Gorguts has magic, so it would be funny if he was like casting invisibility spells on like certain parts that maybe Cook looked like he needed to make these weapons or whatever, and something like that. Like you said, just slowly kind of hide things until maybe all there is left to do is actually do some cooking.
Speaking of not in the best mental state, unless anybody is darn near physically dragging her out, Mira is not leaving her room in the guild hall.
Every once in a while, and probably Gorguts would be interested on, what would she like to eat and all that. He's probably been researching, looking up if there's like any recipes that involve blood. And maybe knocking on the door or leaving it, but not intruding on her privacy during these difficult times.
Yeah, she would definitely accept food and thank him politely, but then close the door and be back inside.
Probably called something stupid like the Blood Bowl or something like that.
It's just a proper English breakfast.
Yeah.
Blood sausage.
I will remember this.
Oh.
Okay. It's called CFG. It's Cloudhenge Fried Goblin.
Also, occasionally, if anyone were to knock and not get a response and check in on her, they might see a door that hadn't been there on the other side of the room. Mostly because she just recently learned Demiplane, and it's a good way to be alone for a little while.
I love it.
That's a good spell.
Luke, what does your time look like during these 2 days waiting for Grant?
It's interesting. I would definitely have been trying to check on Mira, and it's awkward because my personality also is kind of like getting in there to where I'm like, oh man, I wouldn't want to bug her, but at the same time, I would want to check on her, see if she'd want to pray at all, try to process through any of those emotions. 'Cause I feel like that's kind of what Luke would be doing as being a man of God, and also a friend. I feel like Mira and Luke kind of share a stronger bond now, so I feel like that would be mostly what I would be trying to do. And then the reason I was saying my personality kicks in is because I wouldn't want to be sitting still, so I'd be wanting to do some things and kind of just stay busy. So, but I don't want to push that onto Luke's character, but I feel like that's also kind of He's
feel
my
like,
character, so that's
yeah,
what he's gonna do.
yeah, I feel like that fits the bill. Especially, honestly, like you said, they share a certain bond right now. Because I mean, Luke literally brought her back from the dead.
Yeah.
I mean, like that happened. And so yeah, I think there's definitely a connection between you guys. Just in that, bonds forged in battle, but also you guys have shared a lot of downtime together too. And given that you're both, Mira classed into cleric, right? She's got cleric spells.
She has a level of life cleric
Yeah.
and is directly related to the domain warden of life.
That's right.
Who
Yeah.
serves under Pleth.
Yeah. So yeah, there's more than just the battle, the battlefield connection and
Well, yeah, if they both share connection with Pleth too, then that
Yeah.
makes sense.
yeah, I think a lot of that restlessness that you're feeling isn't just if you want me to give you an out for you feeling like you're forcing your own personality onto Luke, maybe some of that restlessness that you're feeling is literally just her own inner turmoil sort of stirring up that tranquil lake that is Pleth that right? And because you two are close, you feel that, and it's bleeding over to you, and so yeah, just a deeper form of kind of empathy there.
She will, at least for the moment, adamantly refuse to do any kind of communicating with the life domain warden.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense.
Smokey, what are you up to for the next 2 days?
Oh, I think Smokey, well, he's definitely messing with that new rifle. But I think to kind of drown these repeat sorrows that I wouldn't say he's accustomed to, but he's definitely experienced before. He'll look towards what his business usually is, which is the city. Checking in with Hit to see if there's anything small or big he can do. Maybe even putting his nose in the work that doesn't necessarily need his involvement, but for the sake of kind of keeping him busy so the day will pass quickly, the 2 days will pass. He would still be interested to see how Mira is doing, but seeing Gorgut's kind of taking care of her smaller needs would probably reassure him that he's not really needed here, that he understands that this is a time for space, and that will pass. But at the same time, he is being a little selfish, seeing his own, his grieving stage is basically him keeping busy with work, what he can find in the city.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Yeah, I think there's still, like, even though, like you're saying, Hetmastine has pretty, without even saying it so much, but has just made it known to you that, like, hey, look, we've got this. I don't think it's hard for Smokey to find things to do around the city. You are, as you're kind of, I'm actually really glad that you said this. As you're walking around the city, everything looks really good. But you're seeing evidence of some kind of a battle that happened here recently, or some kind of a struggle that happened in the city recently. And I don't remember if Tyrek had mentioned to anybody about what happened in Cloudhenge when you guys fought Pauldron, where when he opened up Gauntlet's brain crystal and it screamed to attract Pauldron, it also kind of made all of the empty, so-called empty Warforged units that were being brought in from Havard Cross. They kind of went crazy, and there was like a very short, but I don't want to say devastating. It was a surprise that happened, and it was completely unexpected. It didn't last very long. It was put down pretty quickly and fairly bloodlessly. I don't think anybody died, including any Warforged units, but there were definitely people who were hurt. And lots of damage, which has been patched over, which is evidence to both the mantle and the vigils work in the city, as well as citizens just taking pride in their own city at this point, and kind of everyone pitching in. But you still see evidence of it. There's like, scarring on some of the outer tier walls. There's some steps up to different tiers that are like, they look like they're blasted out in some areas. There's a couple trees in some of the parks that look like maybe they had been caught fire before. Some scorch marks here and there. Evidence of magic spells that had been cast. And probably you see some Warforged walking around with damage on them as well, as it's not as easily repaired. But overall, nothing crazy, and it's to the point where if you were to ask about it, the way that people talk about it, it makes you feel like, okay, like maybe it really wasn't that big of a deal. Like it's taken care of, and people aren't like, nobody's nervous about it, if that makes sense.
I think it's some important background that as a hit would probably reassure Smokey that this is a reminder you need to focus on the bigger picture. Your sights might be set on something larger than Cloudhenge. You need to remind yourself. And as I'm trying to focus on something that happened in the past in the city that was beyond my control, I'm kind of reminded that my responsibility and the responsibility of my group has extended much, much further past than Cloudhenge, and I'm still kind of struggling to kind of adjust my sights, I guess.
Yeah.
It's comforting to focus on the city, but that's very much a stage of grief, I think, right now.
Definitely.
But I think there's definitely maybe some people asking questions, and some lookouts are curious why up on the third tier they hear this this rifle ringing out every now and then over the hills. As I'm messing with it, trying to figure it, make it my own.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love that.
They call down thunder.
Over, Smokey's gone postal.
Okay, let's see. Tyrek, what are you up to?
Oh, it's bad news that Jackal died, but there's nothing that can be done until in these intermittent in between days. So Tyrek's just gonna work on the things he needs to work on. So he'll be getting in contact with, I forgot his name. Have you crossed
Rotney.
Rotney.
Yeah. So actually, Rotney's here in Cloudhenge now.
Yep.
His whole. Oh, okay.
And like, hey, I've got this thing. I've been doing a lot of work with this. I want to try and help get these guys a little more stable and their minds going a little better, and get some of your thoughts on making all of this work better. And he's just going to kind of do his work because there's nothing else that he really can do at the moment. So he's going to proceed with the things he has.
Yeah, I like that. Rotney shows you to the workshop that he has going, and as you are telling him about this like web of connectedness that you have, like his jaw drops, and he's just like in awe, and he's like, if I had known what you all would have been to my project a long time ago, I would have come to you much sooner. This is incredible. That's the kind of connection I've been trying to forge myself with these people. I think we can do a lot of good with this.
Indeed. That's my hope, is to start setting right some of the things that have been set very wrong.
There's been a lot of trauma and damage among these people, which I'm sure at this point you understand in a way that maybe even I cannot. Suffice to say, however you want to proceed with this, I think I will defer to your judgment at this point. My research could benefit us greatly just in the repairing of any units that may need it, any people that may need it. But As
I
far
think you
as
understand.
no, I'm sorry. Continue.
Sorry, I think you understand the mechanical structures of the Warforged a good deal better than I do. I'm not an engineer at all, and have been. I spent a lot more of this time running in the dark, yelling, "I know what I'm doing," than I'm comfortable with. However, how would you like to see at least a little bit of the mind web?
Oh man, I think tears well up in his eyes, and he's just like, more than anything.
So I give him one of the stones for connecting into the convocation. Then, yeah.
Oh yeah, I think it drives him to his knees. He's just like, you see that it's like a moment of like he's met God, at this point. That is, you see on his face, like I don't know. I feel like I was pretty straightforward with this character from the get-go, but if ever there was any doubt in Tyrek's mind about Rotney's goals, I think immediately right there is when Tyrek knows who this guy is, because he is, he's like the double rainbow guy. Double rainbow. It's a spiritual moment for him when he connects into this, and you feel him, because you have this connection. You feel him come into this web, and I think maybe if there was an expectation that, like, because he would come in and maybe not like know immediately what he was doing, that maybe he could have been a little like on the rough side as far as like sending out thoughts and things like this, and looking for things. He doesn't come in like a bull in a china shop. His presence comes in as someone who is wearing just like the softest shoes and trying to walk as quietly as they can through the house, because they revere it and respect it so much. That's what his presence feels like as you feel it kind of brush across your mind, and then reach out across this web of connectedness. And you kind of feel him making contact with other units. You get this idea that maybe he's checking up on units that he had sent out, to see how they're doing, and because of that, they kind of are able to then touch his mind, and they know how he's doing, and it's this really beautiful moment. And when he finishes, he holds the stone out. He's got it grasped in his right hand, but he kind of like holds his left hand out to like cup under his right hand as he like holds his hand open to like hand the gem back to you. He's just being so careful with it, and he can't even bring himself to say thank you. He's just so lost for words. He just kind of, once you take the stone, he puts his hand on your shoulder and just nods at you, and as you walk away from this interaction with him, he stands there looking out across the mountain range, just sort of contemplating what it was that he just had access to.
Okay.
Let's see. On that note, there's a I'm trying to think. Do you try to reach out and make contact with Vambris?
I probably should. Yeah.
Okay. So you bring yourself into this, like I don't know, do you go out to I'm guessing you go out to the Iron Vigil's stronghold before trying this. So you get out there, you go into your trance, this concentration that is so familiar to you at this point. And you are standing holding that web, and it's not hard to like figure out which line belongs to Vambris. The connection, it's like, considering how many you're holding, you'd think it would be crazy hard to figure it out, but like it's pretty obvious immediately which one is which. And you go to grab this line, and as you reach out, it disappears, the whole web sort of disappears, and you realize that it's because your concentration has somehow changed. And Nalish enters your thoughts. And make an insight check as he kind of waltzes into this private moment of yours. Okay, so he walks in. He walks in and looks at you, and you see anger on his face, and he's like, "Tyrek, where did you go? I've been watching you, and ever since you left that little snow town, I can't see where you went. If your memories are like a book for me to just open and read, I can't see. There's nothing written on the pages. Where did you go? What happened here?"
Well, why would I possibly tell you that for free?
It's a bargain you want, is it? Don't forget where your power comes from, child. Make another insight check for me.
Can I just say I love how much your Nalish voice sounds like a raging dick?
It really does.
Yeah,
That could have been better.
his anger has sort of parted way and given into I don't know. I want to call it like annoyance, but it's almost as though there's like a curious factor in there.
Okay.
Let's strike another deal then. Let's strike another bargain. Clearly, I've missed something here.
Indeed. So, to begin with, the terms of our first contract, they are full. They are fulfilled. They are complete. I know when that bargain was struck, you, let's call it what it is. You took advantage of me. You set up a contract with indefinite terms instead of an exchange as they typically are. I forgive you. But that contract is fulfilled.
You
We will make
forgive
an amendment
me.
to that.
He's indignant. Continue. I'm sorry.
We picked up on that.
We will make an amendment to that contract, making it clear that its terms are complete. Because we've both gotten far more than we expected to out of it, and while it's good for it to remain as it is, the exchange that has happened, it's done. Now, if you wish to discuss going forward, we can talk about more equal terms, or really probably even a reversal of positions. Yet again, I'm going to offer you protection, offer you a chance to be away from and separate from what Quark is doing, to get away from him now, because he's insane and he's tearing everything down around him. There's no safety there, there's no shelter there. You are a vast library of experience, knowledge for the battlefield. There's much information there that would be very useful. I don't need you.
You don't need me? By the
I
way,
don't need you.
you invoke Korg's name. I want you to make one more insight check. If it was possible for the color to drain out of a spiritual being's face, that happens.
Daddy, not on good terms now.
He looks over his shoulder, and it's at this point that you see what looks to be like some kind of a man. It's like some kind of a dog almost. It doesn't take an insight check to tell you that like Nalish is acting way out of character.
Yeah.
It's obviously not the first time that he's approached you about something before, but he's like not deranged, but he is knocked off of his rails. And there is some kind of like a really large dog-like entity that is sitting in the background that he looks over his shoulder and looks at it. And looks back at you and licks his lips, and he's like, I don't think you understand the gravity of your situation. You say you don't need me. Where's your power come from? Without me. If it weren't for me, you'd still be rotting in that prison cell in Dilge. If it weren't for me, where would you be? If it weren't for me, and he turns and like gestures broadly, and you see this very brief vision of like fires spreading across the broken islands of Giatsli. He's like, if it weren't for me, this whole world would be shaped differently. No? Choose your words carefully, mortal.
30 years ago, without you, I would have died. I would have died or been a turncoat. I won't deny that. But that was 30 years ago.
As for your proposal, Tyrek, yes, I can see why you think that sounds like a good plan. However, my plans are changing. And he looks over his shoulder again, because they're changing rapidly.
Who are you so afraid of? Who is that? You've never brought anyone else in here to our discussions before. Who is that?
He looks at you really long, for a really long moment. And without actually turning his head to look over his shoulder, he darts his eyes like he's about to do it and then stops himself. And he's like, that wasn't my choice. I didn't bring them with there. Simply here. That's getting off topic.
So, you have power. Some of it given to you by Quorum. Some of it certainly your own. But how have you gained and maintained your power? Mostly through violence and through fear, yes? I'm not afraid of you.
Oh, man.
You don't have a hold on me. I'm not afraid.
His whole demeanor changes when you say that. And he's like, I think I've known for some time that you weren't afraid of me anymore. And I thought to myself that maybe I could still get by. I see now I was mistaken. No, Tyrek, I'm afraid our working relationship has ended. You clearly have your own plans, and you clearly aren't on topic with me anymore. So I really think that this has come to a close. And he lifts his hand up, and a mace appears in it. And he goes to bring it down, and there's a snarling sound as you see that dog, like, racing towards him. And at the very last second, before they make contact, before his mace makes contact with you, suddenly Grant is standing in front of you, and he's gently shaking you. He's like, Tyrek, are you all right, man?
Oh, hello.
Hello. I've
Okay.
just made it in. Are you all right? I wish the circumstances were better. Let's gather everyone, shall we? And let's meet in the guild hall in, say, 10 minutes. Okay, so everybody is summoned. That's pretty much the entirety of. Well, I'll say a lot of guild members are present at this point. They know that Grant is bringing some kind of word to them about Jackal. They just don't know what. He meets the 5 of you plus Crow and any of your lieutenants who you all think would be in on a meeting like this. But I'm trying not to make it like a big broad address right now. Okay, so he pulls you together. He looks at each of you kind of individually before he even says anything. Just not like he's sizing you up, but more like he's trying to gather himself. And he's like, well, first, I feel like the obvious needs to be stated. We don't know where Jackal's body is. According to Ezra, who shall be back along here within the next couple weeks. He took a slower route back so he could oversee High Oron in my absence. Oh, he when he looks at you, Mira, his shoulders slouch, and Grant, for as far as you guys have known Grant, which I'm not really 100% sure like how well everyone knows him, but he's a sailor type like Het Mastine. He's got a rigid posture almost at all times. And he slouches, and it's almost as though like that right there carries the weight of the message. And he pulls out a small silken cloth, not small. It's a fairly large silken cloth that he hands to Mira. And as she unwraps it, she uncovers Jackal's mask, which has that nice little it's a green stripe, right? Or is it a black? It's just a black stripe. Sorry.
It's got the gray triangles on the right side of it, above and below the eye.
Over
but
the
it's
eyes.
also, at this point, got a large crack that comes down through the the upper left corner, down across the eye. As Mira unwraps that, she just falls completely silent, like hardly even breathing, and turns and carries it towards her room. And if nobody moves to stop her, she goes into her room and comes out a moment later carrying some sort of bag and walks out of the guild hall towards the Grove of Clef, outwardly still and calm.
Grant, he tells you about that Jackal was he was given some information by an informant that he was going to be needed in some kind of an upcoming conflict in the Shrike's Temple. From what Ezra told him, they arrived in the Shrike Temple in the middle of a battle between the Liberators, the Jinn Liberators, and two of the Warforged War Masters, Grieve and Sabaton. They were both taken down. One of them was destroyed by a dragonborn, a copper scale dragonborn man, who Ezra let them know was named Ignis. Then they were taken into, because what had happened was that Ezra and Jackal had been transported into this room where they met a Medusa woman named Medusa, who was in the middle of this. It looked like she was part of this ritual at first, until they realized that she had followed someone to the chamber and then was trapped. But because Jackal had an Inquisitor's ring, he was able to activate the door to open that and get out. But then was able to locate the rest of the group just based on the fighting that was going on. They got into a fight. They were able to destroy the War Masters. They came back to the room because the group had relayed that there was a very important artifact that had been taken to that room by way of their cleric's staff. The cleric's name was Roran Narabil. And in the midst of the battle, there was he looked like an elf at first until he sprouted wings, like dragon wings. And then he was hit by a really powerful spell. Ezra had thought his name was like Jeff or something like that. Jeffrey, maybe. He had been struck by a powerful spell. He looked like he was knocked out. And as he was falling, he was caught by a really rather large blue dragon that looked as though it was recovering from some grievous wounds. It tore a hole through between planes, grabbed him, and left. That was around the time that Jackal called out to Korg and then disappeared. And after he disappeared, a whole lot of people, there were soldiers who had been flooding in through some open rifts inside of the chamber. They were all struck dead, like keeled over. And then it sounded as though the Liberators and Ezra continued on to fight against the avatar of the god of death, Garrisil. And it was during this fight that the Liberator's cleric, Roran, received a grievous wound and was killed. Ezra had relayed that after the battle, when the temple collapsed, the Liberators had loaded up onto a flying ship to take Roran's body back to his home in Rivershroud. That was about the time that Grant arrived. Shortly after the temple collapsed, Ezra was able to relay all this information and pass off Jackal's mask. but considering the mask was left behind and in the state that it was in, Ezra seemed very certain that Jackal was not among the living anymore. And Grant kind of stops at this point, and he doesn't really look. He looks like he's not really sure what to say. As he kind of looks at you, and he's just like, I don't know what to do. And he looks at you expectantly.
Mira walks into the grove in false calm, stands before the altar of the Domain Warden of Life, and just quietly says, "Give him back. Give him back." And kneels, holds the mask in her arms, and radiant, ethereal wings unfurl from her back and wrap around herself. And then she stands and screams, "I am your blood! You can't ignore me! Give him back! I'll come there myself! I'll come find you! You can't ignore me!" And then she flies into the air, takes a bag of holding, and does Jackal's old trick. But instead of trying to avoid it, tucks into a ball and deliberately pops herself into the astral plane to go find her great-great-grandfather and make some demands.
The skies of Cloudhenge are lit by a massive explosion, and there is a hole in all of your hearts. And that's where we will end for tonight.
Jesus.
Crater in the city.
Well, it wasn't in the city, so there's a hole in the city and a hole in your hearts. Oh my god.
It's a fortunate thing that you leveled us up enough for her to get her Divine Soul wings.
Yeah.
And,
Oh my god.
if anyone hadn't picked up on it already, Grant would fill the rest of you in that Mira and Jackal were a little more than just professional.
I love you guys so much for letting me put you through this every game.